The Lucy Show. The episode begins with Lucy Carmichael entering what should be a completely routine day, but immediately sensing that something slightly unusual is happening. And in Lucy logic, slightly unusual automatically translates into "this is my chance to shine." Because whether it starts from a small misunderstanding, an overheard comment, or a vague instruction from Mr. Mooney, Lucy quickly convinces herself that she has been placed in a position of temporary importance, which she then upgrades in her own mind to permanent authority, and instead of clarifying anything, she moves straight into action, interpreting her role as someone who needs to take initiative and demonstrate capability far beyond what was actually asked. And the setup revolves around Lucy believing she is responsible for handling or improving some aspect of the bank's operation, which could involve customer relations, internal organization, or a special task that was never meant to be hers in the first place. And she begins by making small adjustments that seem harmless, such as reorganizing paperwork, redirecting clients, or giving instructions to co-workers. But because she does not fully understand the system, these changes immediately start creating inconsistencies that are not obvious at first. And Mary Jane enters early in the episode as the voice of reason, questioning Lucy's interpretation and asking whether any of this has been officially assigned to her, but Lucy responds with absolute confidence, explaining that sometimes leadership means stepping up without being asked, which sounds impressive but is actually just her justifying acting on incomplete information. And as the episode progresses, Lucy's actions expand in scale, because once she commits to an idea, she cannot keep it small. She begins coordinating multiple tasks at once, creating dependencies between them, and involving other people who assume she knows what she is doing simply because she sounds certain. And this is where the comedic engine really starts running, because every step Lucy takes is based on a slightly incorrect assumption that compounds into larger problems. And instead of stopping when something doesn't work, she adapts in real time, making quick fixes that introduce new issues, creating a chain reaction that becomes increasingly difficult to track. And Mr. Mooney at first notices only minor disruptions, such as misplaced documents or unusual scheduling patterns, but gradually realizes that something bigger is happening beneath the surface, prompting him to investigate. And what he discovers is a version of the bank that is functioning according to Lucy's improvised logic rather than established procedure, where tasks are being handled out of order, responsibilities are overlapping, and customers are receiving inconsistent information. And his reaction is a mix of confusion and rising frustration because he cannot immediately determine how the situation got this far without his knowledge. And when he confronts Lucy, she delivers a long and overly confident explanation that blends real facts with incorrect conclusions, presenting her actions as part of a larger strategy that she believes will ultimately benefit the bank. And instead of shutting her down immediately, Mr. Mooney hesitates just long enough for Lucy to continue, which allows the situation to grow even more complex. And from this point, the episode shifts into full escalation mode, with Lucy doubling down on her plan, attempting to correct emerging problems while simultaneously pushing forward with her original idea, creating overlapping layers of activity that interfere with each other in unpredictable ways. And Mary Jane becomes increasingly concerned as she tries to keep track of what Lucy is doing, often stepping in to prevent smaller issues from becoming bigger ones. But she is constantly one step behind because Lucy is always moving forward, driven by the belief that success is just one adjustment away. And the midpoint of the episode arrives when the accumulated effects of Lucy's actions begin to surface in a more visible and undeniable way, such as a major misunderstanding with a client, a breakdown in communication between staff members, or a situation where multiple people are acting on conflicting instructions. And this forces Lucy into a position where she must actively manage the consequences of her own plan, which she does with the same confidence and improvisation that created the problem in the first place. And instead of simplifying the situation, she adds more complexity, trying to resolve issues individually without addressing the underlying cause. And this leads to a sequence of escalating mishaps that build on each other, creating a sense of controlled chaos that defines the episode's comedic peak. And Mr. Mooney, now fully aware that Lucy is responsible, attempts to regain control by issuing direct orders to stop everything. But Lucy interprets these orders selectively, hearing only what aligns with her plan and ignoring the rest, which creates a loop where authority and initiative clash repeatedly. And as the situation continues to escalate, it reaches a point where all the moving parts collide, producing a moment of maximum confusion where multiple problems occur simultaneously, forcing everyone involved to react quickly without fully understanding what is happening. And this is where the episode's humor is at its strongest, because the audience can see the entire chain of cause and effect while the characters are trapped inside it. And eventually the chaos begins to resolve not through careful planning, but through a combination of coincidence, improvisation, and the natural limits of how much confusion the system can sustain. And Lucy, despite being at the center of everything, manages to guide the situation toward a partial resolution, not because her plan was correct, but because she refuses to stop adapting. And in the final act, the immediate crisis is contained, the bank's operations are restored to a functional state, and Mr. Mooney evaluates the outcome with a mixture of relief and disbelief, recognizing that while the process was completely flawed, the damage is not permanent. And Lucy, as always, interprets this as a success, concluding that her initiative and creativity led to a positive result, even though the reality is far more complicated. And Mary Jane reacts with a combination of exhaustion and acceptance, understanding that Lucy is unlikely to change. And the episode closes with the familiar dynamic re-established, Mr. Mooney returning to his desk with cautious optimism, Lucy already hinting at another idea that she believes will work even better next time, and the audience left with the sense that the cycle of misunderstanding, escalation, and reluctant resolution will continue indefinitely. Because that is the core of Lucy's character. She does not learn in the traditional sense. She evolves her confidence while leaving her assumptions intact, ensuring that every new situation has the potential to become just as chaotic and entertaining as the last. And just when it seems like everything has finally settled back into place and the bank has returned to its normal rhythm, the episode adds another subtle extension that shows how fragile that sense of normality really is, because Lucy, even after everything that has happened, does not experience the situation as a mistake, but as an incomplete success. And this difference in interpretation becomes the quiet engine of the final stretch, as she begins casually revisiting parts of her earlier plan in conversation with Mary Jane, pointing out what she believes were the strong points, selectively remembering moments where things appeared to work while completely ignoring the chain reaction of problems that followed. And Mary Jane, who has just gone through the entire ordeal, tries to push back with logic, reminding Lucy of specific incidents that clearly went wrong. But Lucy reframes each one as a temporary obstacle that contributed to the eventual outcome, essentially rewriting the narrative in real time so that she remains the architect of success rather than the cause of chaos. And this reinterpretation would normally stay harmless if it remained theoretical, but Lucy's personality does not allow ideas to remain abstract. And she starts suggesting that with just a few small adjustments, the entire process could be repeated more efficiently, which immediately triggers alarm bells for Mary Jane, who recognizes that this is exactly how the previous disaster began. And she attempts to shut it down early by insisting that no one wants a repeat of what just happened. But Lucy counters with confidence, arguing that now they have experience and insight, meaning the next attempt would naturally be smoother. And while this logic sounds reasonable on the surface, it completely ignores the fact that Lucy's core issue is not lack of experience, but her tendency to act on assumptions without verification. And as this conversation unfolds, Mr. Mooney overhears enough to understand where it is going, and his reaction is immediate and decisive, stepping in before Lucy can fully develop her next idea and firmly stating that there will be no continuation, no sequel, and no reinterpretation of the earlier events as a model for future action, delivering this with a tone that is both authoritative and deeply tired, as if he has already lived through this exact conversation multiple times before, and Lucy, sensing the firmness of his stance, temporarily shifts her approach, appearing to agree and stepping back into her normal duties with an expression that suggests compliance. But there is a subtle difference between actual acceptance and strategic retreat, and Lucy's history makes it clear which one this is. Because even as she resumes routine tasks, she continues thinking, connecting unrelated observations into potential ideas, quietly rebuilding momentum beneath the surface, and the final moments of the episode play with this contrast, showing the bank functioning smoothly again on the outside while Lucy's imagination continues operating at full speed internally, and Mary Jane, watching her closely, can tell that this calm is temporary, giving her a cautious look that mixes concern and resignation, while Mr. Mooney, returning to his desk and attempting to focus on his work, carries the awareness that stability in this environment is always conditional. And the closing beat comes when Lucy casually mentions a completely new idea that seems unrelated to everything that came before but carries the same underlying pattern of overconfidence and incomplete understanding, and although she presents it as something small and harmless, both Mary Jane and Mr. Mooney immediately recognize the potential for escalation, reacting with expressions that signal the cycle is about to repeat once again. And the episode ends on that familiar note of comedic inevitability, where nothing has fundamentally changed except the details, and Lucy remains exactly who she is, a constant source of disruption driven by optimism, persistence, and a complete inability to see the boundary between possibility and reality, ensuring that whatever comes next will follow the same unpredictable path from confidence to chaos to reluctant resolution all over again.